Hello friends, I'm Nisha Sharma, Associate Professor, Department of English. The topic under discussion today is a line-by-line analysis of John Donne's poem Death Be Not Proud, which is known as Holy Sonnet 10. In our earlier video, we, uh, we have made an attempt to make ourselves familiarize with John Donne and the metaphysical is. So you are very familiar now with the chief traits of metaphysical poetry. So let's now begin with Death Be Not Proud. Death Be Not Proud, as Holy Sonnet poem is commonly known, was published in 1633, 2 years after John Donne's death. It's often found in literature anthologies. The speaker begins by addressing death directly. He tells it not to be proud, despite its reputation as mighty and dreadful. This reputation is unfounded. He pities death because those it kills don't really die. He also states that death can't kill him. There are two poetic devices used in the opening: apostrophe and personification. Apostrophe occurs when the speaker addresses someone who is not there, something abstract or a thing. We see this here when he speaks to death and abstraction. Next is personification. Personification occurs when human characteristics are attributed to something abstract or non-human. This happens here as death is spoken to like it's a person. So this poem is addressed to death and the poet is talking with death as if it is a living human being. Now, line by line. Death be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. Now, the word thou is in Old English for you, and art is are. The speaker immediately creates a personified version of death by talking directly to him. He paints a picture of death as an arrogant being and one who needs to be humbled. The speaker assumes the position of the one who must humble this being dead. He tells him that he ought not to be so proud, even though for generations people have feared death and called him mighty and dreadful. The poet feels in his heart that death feels proud because people are afraid of it and it is so powerful that it controls everybody. So the poet addresses death not to feel mighty and dreadful. How the speaker, however, with a voice of absolute authority on the matter, simply states, "For thou art not so." You think you are powerful, but actually you are not so. For those whom thou thinkest thou dost overthrow, die not, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. Thou again use for you, overthrow is to defeat or to destroy, canst for cannot. Lines 3 and 4 introduce the main argument that will be made plainer in the conclusion. Those with whom death does overthrow die not. Death isn't an end, but a transition. The speaker pities poor death for this reason. It can't do the only thing it is supposed to do. Here in Death Be Not Proud, the speaker accuses the death of having illusions of grandeur. He claims that while death thinks that he has the power to kill, he actually does not. The speaker first humbles death by telling him that his idea that he has the power to overthrow lives is simply an illusion and that he has no such power at all. Then, to further humiliate death, the speaker calls him poor death. It sounds almost as if the speaker is making fun of death for having lived under the illusion that he had any sort of power over life or death. Then he addressed death in a more personal manner, challenging him by saying, "Yet canst thou kill me?" It seems dangerous for one to threaten death in this way. However, knowledge of John Donne's background and ideologies can give some insight into the speaker's confidence here. Though everyone knows that physical death does indeed occur, the speaker is challenging death in a different way. He uses the Christian theology of eternity to taunt death by telling him essentially, even if you take my physical body, you can never truly kill me. As with many of Donne's poems, Death Be Not Proud starts boldly. I've already told you that Donne makes an abrupt beginning of his poem and he makes innovative or bold experiments. Here, this death, which is regarded as something to be fearful, the poet pities death, poor death, just like he does in his poem Sunrising. While a sonnet might be often used to address a lover, here death itself is personified and instantly introduced as the recipient of the poem. The poem also begins with apostrophe, which makes it clear that death is the intended listener. By personifying death, the speaker fills it with the undesirable human characteristics of misplaced pride. Death has a self inflated sense of importance and trades on its reputation as fearsome and final. The speaker acknowledges that some people view death in this way, but makes it clear that they shouldn't, and that the rest of the poem will prove why. Death thinks that it can overthrow life, which, as the fourth line clarifies, means kill people. Here, death is characterized as an aggressor, but the speaker states very clearly that this aggression is misplaced because essentially nobody ever actually dies. This is, of course, a paradoxical statement. The poem doesn't really intend to deny the existence of death. Instead, it takes the Christian belief in the eternal afterlife as proof that death is really nothing at all. Though the afterlife has not yet been mentioned, it informs the atmosphere of the quatrain's idea. Again, this sets up the standpoint of the poem's argument, and it is from here that the speaker must prove why this argument holds true. By the end of line 4, the poem is still in the proposition stage of the argument. The bold statement has been made that death cannot kill, and it is up to the rest of the poem to somehow demonstrate this to be true. Now let's continue. From rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be, much pleasure then from thee, much more must be. With these lines, the speaker compares death to rest and sleep, and even uses the word pleasure to describe how one should feel about death. Just as a restful night of sleep brings pleasure, so should death. The speaker implies that sleep is simply a small glimpse of death, thus, there is nothing to fear in death, for death will bring something like a pleasurable sleep. And soonest our best men with thee do go, rest of their bones and souls delivery. Soonest, use of Old English in the spelling. Here in Death Be Not Proud, the speaker says that the best men seem to experience death the soonest, while others have long questioned why it seems as if the best people die soonest. The speaker offers an answer here, suggesting that the best among men deserve to experience the peaceful rest of death sooner without having to endure the agonies of a long life on the earth. The speaker described death as rest of their bones and soul's delivery. Both of these descriptions make death seem like a welcome friend who comes to graciously offer rest and peace and the deliverance of one's soul from an earthly body where pain and suffering abide. Means death is a release from the prison of body. It frees the soul. The speaker reasons that because people get pleasure from resting and sleeping, which are mere images of death, being dead must be even more pleasurable. What's more, the best people die early and enjoy their rest. This allows their souls to be free. Thou art slave to fate, chance, kings, and desperate men, and dust with poison, war, and sickness dwell. Here, the speaker takes on a stronger tone and begins to taunt death with more ferocity than he did at first. Here, he calls death as a slave to chance, kings, and desperate men. He tells death that he is not mighty and dreadful, but rather a poor slave who cannot even act on his own, but is driven not only by fate and chance, but also by people, rich and poor alike. He then accuses death of having mean companion such as poison, war, and sickness. He has taunted death, telling him that he is not to be feared, but rather that he is a slave to the will of fate and men, and that as a lowly slave, his companions are the trivial beings such as sickness and war. These accusations serve to allow the readers to feel a sense of power and victory over death. The speaker certainly feels authority over death, and he passes this feeling along to his readers when he puts death in his place by talking down to him. And poppy or charms can make us sleep as well, and better than thy straw, why swellest thou them? The speaker continues to taunt death even more, saying that all he brings is a little sleep, and he doesn't even do that as well as some other bringers of rest, such as poppy or charm. This comparison further portrays death as something not only weak but even pleasurable. The speaker questions death, asking, why swellest thou then? He is asking him why he is so puffed up with pride when he cannot even do his job as well as others can. Rather than ruling people, death is a slave to the actions of others. It also has to associate with a caste of undesirables. The speaker continues by contending that death shouldn't be proud of its ability because drugs or magic can make us sleep just as well or better. Again, the speaker's framing of things can be called into question. Is death really a slave to fate, chance, kings, and desperate men? Or are they his accomplices? If we stay with the idea that death is a person, all these examples should be his helpers. His dubious reasoning continues with the claim that opium, poppy, or a magic spell brings better sleep than death. Since the speaker hasn't experienced the sleep of death, he can't be sure of this. It also seems to contradict his earlier statement that sleep is just a picture of death. If sleep is but a picture or representation that doesn't capture the full experience, then no kind of sleep could be better than death. One short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die. With these final lines of death be not proud, the speaker reveals exactly why he has been taunting death so relentlessly. Although it is obvious that death is real and that people who experience death do not come back to earth, the speaker reveals his reasons for claiming that death is weak and easily overcome. He claims that death is only one short sleep and those who experience death wake eternally. Then he claims that death shall be no more. Finally, he tells death, thou shalt die. The speaker has not only told death that he has no real power over anyone, but that he will experience the end of himself when all wake in eternity and death will be no more. The speaker concludes with the assertion that death is nothing more than a short sleep that leads to eternal life. When this happens, death is over, death dies. The last two lines emphasize what was established in line 3 and 4, that death's victims don't really die. Death is only a short sleep from which a person awakens to everlasting life. After Judgment Day, death will be done away with. Death will itself die. There is a dramatic reversal in this last line. Death thinks it's destroying people, but they will go on to live eternally. Death can't achieve salvation. The end death experiences is real. Thank you.